Maya had always loved engines more than people. They were honest. They either worked or they didn't, and their problems could be solved with the right tools and enough grit. People, on the other hand, were a puzzle. Growing up in a small Midwestern town where a person's worth was often measured by their last name and the color of their skin, Maya had learned this truth the hard way. She was 22, and with oil-streaked coveralls and a stubborn streak inherited from her grandmother, she was the lead mechanic at Gus's garage. It was a title she had earned through sheer force of will. She wasn't just good, she was better than most of the men who worked there, and they all knew it even if they never said it aloud. As one of the only black women in a town where old attitudes died hard, she lived in a world of silent resistance. Each morning she arrived before sunrise, the faint glow of the streetlights her only company. She'd tie her braids back under a grease-stained cap, her fingers already twitching for the feel of a carburetor. She didn't expect praise, just respect. But in that garage, respect always came slow when you looked like her. She endured the passive glances, the customers who asked for one of the guys before she had even finished a sentence, and the manager, Gus, who would always without fail double-check her work when she wasn't looking. She handled it all with the same quiet strength she used to tighten a bolt, without flinching, and with the unwavering belief that her work would speak for itself. That Tuesday morning was no different. Maya was deep in the guts of a Ford truck, its hood propped up like a jaw wide open, when a new sound cut through the familiar clamor of the shop. It was a deep, unfiltered, unapologetic growl, the kind of thunderous rumble that didn't just announce a vehicle's arrival, it demanded attention. A bike. A big one. The kind only serious riders handled. The other mechanics all paused, their wrenches still, their gazes fixed on the garage door. When she finally looked up, the shop had gone silent. He stood there, a figure of a man in a worn leather vest, a grim expression on his face, and the unmistakable patch on his back. Hell's Angels. A collective intake of breath seemed to ripple through the garage. Most of the mechanics took a nervous step back, but Maya felt no such impulse. She wiped her hands on a rag, walked up to him with a confident stride and said, "What's the problem?" She had no idea that in those words she was stepping into a world far more dangerous than any broken-down engine. The biker didn't speak much. His face was a mask of stoicism. He simply grunted and pointed to the engine. "Won't turn over," he said. "Electrical short. Something's off." Maya crouched beside the bike, her fingers moving across the chrome like a musician checking her strings before a performance. She was completely focused, oblivious to the whispers and nervous glances from the men around her. She saw only the problem, not the patch. "Looks like a loose ignition coil," she said, her voice calm and steady. "I can get you back on the road in an hour." There was no swagger in her voice, just confidence earned through countless hours of hard work. The man nodded, a barely perceptible gesture, and stepped back. The other mechanics continued to watch, not about the bike but about her, about him, and what that patch meant in their small town. Hell's Angels weren't welcome here, but in some ways, neither was a young black girl running the show. The uneasy tension in the air was palpable, making everyone feel small and uncomfortable. Even Gus, the manager, a man who rarely left his office, stood watching with folded arms and a cold look she'd seen before. Not anger or confusion, but pure, quiet disapproval. An hour passed. The bike roared to life with a low rumble that made the windows vibrate. The biker gave her a nod of acknowledgement, not thanks, just a simple recognition of a job well done. For him, that was enough. Maya stood up, wiping the sweat from her neck. "You're good to go," she said. But before she could walk back to her station, Gus's voice cut through the air, loud and clear. "Maya, my office. Now." She blinked, a small flicker of confusion in her eyes. "Is there a problem?" He didn't answer, just stared. The moment she stepped into his office, she felt the cold finality of what was to come. The door closed behind her like a lock snapping shut on a cage. "I don't think this is working out anymore," Gus said, his eyes hard. She laughed, a short, disbelieving sound. "You're firing me? For what?" He didn't flinch. "That kind of customer, that kind of attention, it's not good for business." The words didn't say black, or woman, or you don't belong, but they didn't have to. The message was as clear as a newly polished chrome bumper. By the time she stepped out of the office, toolbox in hand, the shop was quiet again. But the silence had changed. It was no longer one of curiosity, it was a heavy, complicit silence that made her skin crawl. She had done everything right and she was still being pushed out. But what no one realized was that she wasn't going quietly. Maya sat in her beat-up pickup, the engine idling, her hands trembling on the steering wheel. "Fired. For doing her job." No warning, no write-up, just tossed aside like a tool no longer useful. She thought of her mother, who'd worked 2 jobs just to buy her that first socket set. She thought of the nights spent studying engine manuals while her classmates scrolled through prom photos. Every calloused finger, every sexist smirk she had ignored, every silent battle she had won. Until now. Just as the hot sting of tears began to well in her eyes, her phone buzzed. A message from the biker. 2 words, "Come outside." Confused, she stepped out slowly, unsure of what to expect. There he stood, leather vest, arms crossed, but he wasn't alone. 3 more motorcycles lined up behind him. Different riders, different patches, but all of them watching, all of them waiting. The original biker nodded toward the garage. "That your boss?" he asked. Maya hesitated. "Was?" she corrected, the word feeling both bitter and defiant on her tongue. He walked up to the shop, his movement calm but deliberate. Gus, sensing the confrontation, stepped out, the fear he had masked earlier now plain on his face. "What's this?" Gus stammered, his arms rising slightly. The biker didn't yell or threaten. He simply looked Gus in the eye and said, "That girl fixed my bike like no one else ever has, and you fired her. Big mistake." Before Gus could speak, the other bikers revved their engines, a synchronized roar that was both a warning and a statement. The noise drew eyes from nearby shops and from people on the street, many of whom were now recording the scene on their phones. One by one they turned and rode away, but the first biker looked back at Maya one last time. "Keep fixing bikes," he said. "You're better than this place." And then he was gone. In that moment, the shop that had always made her feel small felt even smaller, a tiny relic of a prejudiced past. But Maya, she felt something new. Something like maybe this wasn't the end at all. It was the beginning of a different, more powerful story. Maya never returned to Gus's garage. She didn't need to. Within days, the video of the confrontation had gone viral. The growl of the engines, the silent standoff, and her calm strength in the face of injustice captivated people. Thousands of comments poured in, not just of sympathy but of support. Donations, job offers, and messages from other young women and girls who had thought there was no place for them in a world of steel and grit. She never wanted to be a symbol, but suddenly she was. Within a week, she used her small savings and the flood of donations to open her own business, Maya's Torque and Tune. It was just a small garage at first, but it quickly became more. It became a brand, then a community. She hired people like her, those who had been overlooked, doubted, and dismissed. She trained them, mentored them, and gave them the tools and respect she never had when she started out. Her shop became more than a business. It was a beacon. It was proof that excellence has no color, that grit can't be boxed in by gender, and that when society tries to shut a door in your face, you build your own damn garage and leave the door wide open for others. But Maya never forgot what happened that day. It was a constant reminder of a truth she had long known but rarely said aloud. In some places, being great isn't enough, not when you look a certain way. But that's why her story matters. It didn't end in silence. It ended in engines roaring, doors opening, and a girl who dared to stand her ground becoming a leader no one could ignore. And the question remains, how many others like her are still being pushed out, unseen, in the quiet corners of the world? And what would happen if we all stopped letting it slide?